sun was dying over the desert. Marcus had been riding for 3 days straight, and his body hurt in ways he could not even name anymore. His horse had died 2 days ago, not from sickness, but from old age and the cruel heat that never stopped burning. Now he was walking alone through a landscape that looked like the end of the world. The sky was turning orange and red. Dust covered everything: his clothes, his face, his hair. His water bottle was almost empty. He should have turned back at the town of Redstone, but something inside him pushed him forward. Something he could not explain. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was just stubbornness. In the Wild West, sometimes those two things were the same. Then he saw it. Through the heat waves that danced like ghosts above the sand, Marcus saw a cabin. It was not a big cabin. It was not a pretty cabin. The wood was gray and broken, like old bones left in the sun for too many years. The roof had holes in it. One window was missing completely. It looked like no one had lived there for a very long time. But it was there. It was real. And right now, that was everything. Marcus walked toward it slowly. His legs felt heavy. His mind felt heavy too. He had been running from something his whole life, and this cabin seemed like a good place to finally stop. That is when he saw the horse. It was tied to a fence post behind the cabin. The fence was nearly broken, just old wood held together by habit and luck. The horse was very thin. Marcus could see every bone under its skin. Its coat was not brown or black or any color that looked alive. It was the color of rust, the color of something that had been left outside to die slowly, day after day, year after year. The horse's head hung down. It was not eating the dry grass in front of it. It was not looking at anything. It was just standing there, waiting for something that was probably never going to come. Marcus stopped. He looked at the horse. The horse did not look at him. "Hello," Marcus said softly. The horse did not move. "It is okay," Marcus whispered. "I am not here to hurt you." Still nothing. The horse just stood there like a statue, like something that had forgotten how to be alive. Marcus walked around the cabin slowly. The door was unlocked. Nobody locked doors out here, because there was nothing worth stealing. Inside, the cabin was darker than the desert outside. It took a moment for his eyes to get used to it. There was a table. There was one chair. There was a bed with a blanket folded on it so neatly that it looked like someone was coming back soon. But nobody was coming back. Marcus could feel it in the air, the feeling of a place that time had forgotten. And then he saw the photograph. It sat on the table, held down by a smooth rock so the wind would not blow it away. Marcus picked it up carefully. The photograph was old, from maybe 50 years ago. It showed a young woman with a smile so big it looked like it might break her face. Next to her stood a horse, a beautiful horse, young and strong and full of life. The woman's hand was on the horse's neck, and you could see the love there. Not the kind of love that people talk about. The kind of love that does not need words. In the back of the photograph, someone had written in pencil, "Storm and me, 1987. Forever, I promise." Marcus sat down on the chair. His legs did not want to hold him anymore. Outside, the sun was getting lower. The sky was getting darker. Soon it would be night, and the desert got very cold at night. Marcus should have felt worried. He should have felt scared. But instead, he felt something else. He felt like he had found something important. He did not know what it was yet, but he could feel it. He put the photograph back on the table. Marcus went back outside and looked at the horse again. The horse was still standing in the same place. Still not moving. Still not living, just existing. "Your name is Storm," Marcus said. "Is it not?" The horse did not answer. But something changed in the air between them. Marcus was sure of it. He walked to the fence and looked at the ropes that held the horse. They were old and worn. They looked like they could break any second. But they had not broken. The horse had not run away. It had just stayed here, tied to this fence, behind this broken cabin, waiting. Marcus understood then, without knowing how he understood, that this horse was waiting for someone. Someone who was not coming back. "Do not worry," he said to the horse. "I will figure this out. I promise you. I will figure this out." The horse finally lifted its head. For just 1 second, it looked at Marcus. And in that look, Marcus saw something that made his heart break. He saw a creature that had loved someone more than it loved its own life. He saw loyalty. He saw sadness. He saw a promise that had never been broken, even though the person who made it was long gone. The sun was almost gone now. The desert was turning purple and blue. Stars were starting to come out. Marcus walked back into the cabin and lay down on the bed with the folded blanket. He was too tired to do anything else. His body was broken. His mind was tired, but his heart was awake. He thought about the photograph. He thought about the horse standing outside, still waiting. He thought about someone named Storm, and someone named maybe Sarah, maybe Elizabeth, maybe just someone who had loved deeply and lost everything. Tomorrow, he decided, he would begin to find out what happened here. Tomorrow, he would try to fix something that seemed broken beyond repair. Tomorrow, he would start to keep the promise that someone else had written on the back of an old photograph 50 years ago. But tonight, in this broken cabin, in this broken place, Marcus finally stopped running. And somewhere outside, the horse called Storm waited in the darkness, unaware that someone had finally come to understand what it had been waiting for all these lonely years.
Marcus woke when the sun was already high in the sky. His body hurt from sleeping on the hard bed, but his mind was clear. For the first time in many months, he had slept without bad dreams. He had slept without running away from something in his sleep. He walked outside. The desert was bright and hot. The sky was so blue it hurt to look at. Storm was still there, still tied to the fence, still standing in the same place. "I will help you," Marcus said. "But first, I need to understand. I need to know your story." The horse did not answer, but something in Marcus felt different now. He was not just a lost man anymore. He had a purpose. He had a reason to stay. Marcus went back inside the cabin and began to really look around. The first time he came in, it was too dark. His mind was too tired. But now, in the bright morning light that came through the broken window, he could see everything. There was a small shelf on one wall. On it sat 5 things: a candle, a tin cup, a bottle of water, empty, a box of matches, and a leather book. The book was old, very old. The leather was cracked and faded, but someone had taken care of it. Someone had loved it. Marcus picked up the book carefully. He was afraid it might fall apart in his hands. The first page had a name written on it: Sarah Mitchell, 1987. Marcus opened it slowly. The pages inside were full of writing. Not neat writing, but real writing, the kind that came from someone's heart, not their brain. The first entry said, "Storm arrived today. Father brought her from the town. She is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. Her eyes are so smart. It is like she understands everything. I think we will be best friends forever. I am sure of it." Marcus sat down on the floor and kept reading. The entries were from a long time ago. 1987, 1988, 1989. Each one was a little story about Storm and Sarah, about riding across the desert, about racing the wind, about 2 creatures who loved each other more than anything else in the world. "Storm beat the fastest horse in the town today," one entry said. "Everyone clapped for us, but we did not care about winning. We only cared about feeling the wind and being together." Marcus felt tears in his eyes. He did not understand why. He just kept reading. Then, in 1995, the writing changed. The entries were shorter. The handwriting was different, shaky, like someone's hands were not steady anymore. "Storm is sick," one entry said. "The doctor came from town. He says there is nothing we can do. He says I should let her go. But how can I do that? How can I let go of my best friend?" The next entry was 2 weeks later. "Storm is still alive. The doctor does not understand how, but she is still here, still fighting." Then nothing. Pages and pages were blank. Years of blank pages. Marcus felt cold, even though the cabin was hot. He turned the page. There was a new entry. The handwriting was different again, older now, more careful. The date was 2015, 20 years after the last entry. The writing said, "I came back today. I did not think I could do it. I did not think I could look at this place. But I came back, and Storm is still here. She is old now, very old, but she is still here, still waiting. I do not understand how that is possible, but it is true." Marcus closed the book. His hands were shaking. He walked outside and looked at Storm again. Really looked at her. The horse was very old. That was clear now. The way she stood. The way her breathing was slow and heavy. The sadness in her eyes. "How long have you been here?" Marcus whispered to her. Storm did not answer. But something in the way the horse looked at him made Marcus understand. This horse had been waiting for Sarah. For decades. Even after Sarah stopped coming. Even after Sarah probably died or gave up or moved away. Storm had stayed, tied to a fence, behind a broken cabin, waiting. Marcus looked around the cabin yard. There was a water well nearby, almost hidden by rocks and dried plants. Someone, maybe Sarah, maybe someone else, had kept coming here to fill the bucket. Someone had kept leaving food. Someone had kept Storm alive, even when nobody needed to, until they stopped coming. But Storm was still here. Marcus walked to the well and tried the handle. It was stiff, but it worked. He brought up bucket after bucket of water. He poured it into a trough by the fence. Storm's ears moved forward. For the first time, Storm seemed interested in something. The old horse walked to the trough slowly. Every step looked painful, but she walked. And when she reached the water, she drank like she was drinking life itself back in her body. Marcus found a bag of grain in a storage shed near the cabin. It was old grain, probably from years ago, but it was still good. He put some in a bucket and placed it near Storm. The horse ate carefully, slowly, like she was remembering how to live. That night, Marcus went back into the cabin and read more of Sarah's journal. He read about the accident, about the moment when everything changed. A snake, a fear, a fall. Sarah's legs never worked properly again after that. She could walk, but she could not ride. She could not run. She could not be the person she was before. And she could not be near Storm. Because Storm was the reminder of the moment she lost everything. So Sarah had built this cabin far away. She came once a year, left supplies, and left. She could not let Storm go. But she could not stay with Storm either. The pain was too big. Marcus understood pain like that. He knew what it felt like to love someone and run away from them at the same time. He looked out the window at Storm. The horse was sleeping standing up, like horses do. In the moonlight, she looked peaceful for the first time. "I will find out what happened to Sarah," Marcus promised the horse. "And I will fix this. I will fix both of us." The night was quiet. The desert was still. And for the first time in a very long time, both Marcus and Storm were not alone anymore. They were together. And that changed everything. Marcus spent 3 days reading Sarah's journal. He read it slowly, carefully, like each word was made of glass. He read about a girl who loved a horse more than she loved life itself. He read about a moment that changed everything. He read about a woman who could not let go, even when letting go was the only way to survive. By the 3rd day, Marcus understood. He understood the weight that Sarah had been carrying. He understood why she came back to this cabin once a year, and then left again, unable to stay. He understood the terrible choice she had made, to keep Storm alive but stay away from her, because being near Storm meant remembering everything she had lost. But there was still one thing Marcus did not understand. He did not understand how Storm was still alive. The journal's last entry was from 2015. That was 8 years ago. Storm would have been ancient by then. She would have been older than any horse should be able to live. "Who kept feeding you?" Marcus asked Storm as he gave her breakfast. "Who kept you alive when Sarah stopped coming?" Storm ate from her bucket and did not answer. Marcus decided he had to go to the town. He had to find out what happened to Sarah. He had to understand the whole story. But first, he made sure Storm had everything she needed. He fixed the fence so it was strong and safe. He filled the water trough so it was full. He prepared enough grain for 3 days. He worked like a man possessed, because leaving Storm alone made his chest tight with worry. "I will come back," he told the horse. "I promise." just like Sarah promised. I will come back. The town of Redstone was only 5 miles away. Marcus walked there on a hot afternoon, sweat running down his face. The town was small, maybe 50 buildings, most of them old and tired. There was a general store, a church, a saloon, and a sheriff's office. Everything looked like it belonged to another time. Marcus went to the general store first. The old man behind the counter was reading a newspaper that looked like it was from last week. "I'm looking for information about someone," Marcus said. Her name was Sarah Mitchell. She lived in a cabin about 5 miles out in the desert. The old man's face changed. He looked sad, and also like he was remembering something very heavy. "You knew her?" Marcus asked. "Everyone knew Sarah," the man said slowly. "She grew up here. Beautiful girl. Smart girl. Loved that horse of hers more than anything." "What happened to her?" Marcus asked. The old man put down his newspaper. "There was an accident. In 1995, Sarah was riding that horse. Storm, I think was the name, and a snake spooked the animal. Sarah fell hard. Very hard. She nearly died. The doctor said she would never walk right again." Marcus nodded. This matched what Sarah had written in the journal. After that, the old man continued. Sarah became different. She stopped coming to town. She stopped seeing people. She built that cabin far out in the desert and lived there alone. Sometimes people would see her, but she would always leave before they could talk to her. It was like she wanted to disappear from the world. "Is she still alive?" Marcus asked carefully. The old man shook his head slowly. "Sarah died 7 years ago. She was found in that cabin by a man who was passing through. He buried her nearby. That was in 2018. Marcus felt like something broke inside him. 7 years. Sarah had been dead for 7 years. That meant Storm had been alone for 7 years. That meant that horse had been waiting for someone who would never come back. Who has been keeping the horse alive? Marcus asked. Who has been leaving food and water? The old man looked confused. Nobody, as far as I know. When Sarah died, most people thought the horse would die too. But sometimes people would talk about seeing an old horse standing by that cabin. Some said it was a ghost. Some said nobody could understand how that horse was still alive. Marcus left the store and walked to the cemetery. It took him an hour to find Sarah's grave. It was small and simple. The stone said, Sarah Mitchell, 1970 to 2018. She loved deeply. Marcus sat down beside the grave. The hot desert sun beat down on him, but he did not move. He sat there and thought about everything. He thought about Sarah's pain. He thought about her choice to stay away from Storm. He thought about how she had probably died knowing that she was never coming back, that Storm would be alone forever. And he thought about Storm, waiting year after year, waiting through rain and sun and cold nights, waiting for someone who would never come back, waiting even after death had taken the only person who loved her. How was that even possible? How could a creature love like that? How could a horse wait for decades without giving up? Marcus understood then that he had not come to that cabin by accident. He had not survived that desert and found that broken place by chance. He had come there because Storm needed him. Sarah needed him. They both needed someone to remember their love. They both needed someone to understand what they had shared. When Marcus returned to the cabin, Storm was waiting by the fence. The horse made a sound, a low, sad sound that sounded like crying. Marcus untied the horse and walked her to Sarah's grave. He did not know if this was a right thing to do. He did not know if it would help, but it felt right. Storm walked slowly across the desert. When she reached the grave, the old horse stood very still. She lowered her head. She was silent for a long time. Marcus stood beside them, man and horse, both standing over the grave of a woman who had loved so deeply that it had shaped everything. She loved you, Marcus whispered to Storm. She never stopped loving you. Even when she had to stay away, she loved you. She came back again and again because she could not let you go. Storm made another sound, a long, sad sound that seemed to contain years of loneliness, years of waiting, years of hope that never died. The sun was setting. The sky was turning orange and red, and Marcus made a decision. He would not leave Storm again. He would not let this horse wait anymore. He would take Storm away from this cabin, away from this grave, away from this broken place. He would give Storm a second chance at life. Even if he did not know how to do it, he would try, because that is what love does. Love tries. Love fights. Love never gives up. And Storm had been loving for long enough. Marcus stood at the fence and looked at Storm. The horse was very old, very sick. Her legs were thin. Her breathing was heavy. By all the rules of nature, Storm should have been dead a long time ago. But she was not dead. She was standing here, waiting like she had something left to do in this world. "I could let you go," Marcus said softly. "I could end your suffering. That would be the kind choice. That would be what most people would do." Storm looked at him with eyes that had seen 70 years of desert sun. "But I'm not going to do that," Marcus continued. "Because you're still here. Because you still want to live. And because someone loved you enough to wait. So I'm going to ask you to wait a little longer. Wait for me. Wait while I try to fix this." Marcus made a decision that morning. He would not leave Storm tied to that fence anymore. He would take the horse away from that cabin, away from those sad memories, away from the grave where Sarah lay buried. He would try to give Storm a life again. The first problem was that Marcus did not have money. He did not have much of anything. But in the cabin, he found something unexpected. Under the loose floorboard where Sarah kept her journal, there was a small metal box. Inside the box was paper money, old bills, but real money. Hundreds of dollars. Enough to do something. There was a note on top of the money. The handwriting was shaky, like it had been written by someone very old or very tired. It said, "For Storm. Please, if anyone ever finds this, please take care of her. She deserves better than this. She deserves to live." Marcus held the note for a long time. Sarah had known. Even near the end of her life, Sarah had known she might not come back. She had left money for Storm. She had left instructions. She had left hope. The next morning, Marcus made Storm ready to travel. He found a saddle in the barn, old but still strong. He found a rope and made a halter. He worked slowly and carefully, talking to Storm the whole time, making sure the horse understood that he was trying to help, not hurt. "We're going to town," he said. "We're going to find a doctor. Not a human doctor. A horse doctor. Someone who can look at you and tell me how to make you better." Storm did not resist. The old horse seemed to understand that something was changing. The walk to Redstone was slow. Storm moved like every step hurt. Marcus could feel the pain in every movement. Twice, he thought the horse would stop completely and refuse to go further. But each time, Storm kept going. Each time, the horse found a little more strength. In town, Marcus went to the saloon and asked questions. He asked about veterinarians. He asked about horse doctors. People looked at him strangely at first, but then they understood what he was doing. They understood that he was trying to save an old horse. "There is a doctor named James Wilson," the bartender told him. "He lives about 10 miles north of here. He helps animals. He is old himself, but he is good. Very good." Marcus thanked him and bought supplies, fresh food, medicine, bandages, and a blanket to keep Storm warm at night. He spent almost half of Sarah's money, but he did not care. Storm was more important than money. The ride to James Wilson's house took all day. Storm was exhausted by the time they arrived. The horse could barely stand. James Wilson was an old man with kind eyes and hands that looked like they had healed 1,000 wounds. He looked at Storm carefully, running his hands over the horse's body, checking her legs, looking at her teeth, listening to her breathing. He did not say anything for a long time. Finally, he turned to Marcus and said, "This horse should be dead. How long has she been like this?" "I do not know exactly," Marcus said, "but a very long time, maybe 30 years or more." James Wilson shook his head. "That is impossible. And yet, here she is. I have never seen anything like this. Normally, a horse in this condition would give up. The pain would be too much. But this horse, she has something inside her, something that will not let her die. Can you help her?" Marcus asked. "I can try," James Wilson said. "But you have to understand, she is very old, very weak. This will take time. It will take patience, and it will hurt. There will be moments when she wants to give up, and you will have to help her keep fighting." "I will do it," Marcus said immediately. "I will do whatever it takes." For the next month, Marcus stayed at James Wilson's house. He worked every day with Storm. The horse doctor gave Storm medicine, bitter medicine that made her sick at first, but slowly made her stronger. He treated infections in her legs. He cleaned her hooves. He did 100 small things to help her body remember how to be alive. And Marcus was there for all of it. He talked to Storm. He read Sarah's journal to her. He told her stories about the woman who loved her. He told her that she was not alone anymore. He told her that someone cared. Slowly, very slowly, something changed. Storm's coat became less gray. Her ribs did not show so much. Her breathing became easier. One day, Marcus was surprised to see Storm actually eat with enthusiasm, like the food tasted good, like living was worth something again. But the real change came one morning when Marcus brought Storm outside. The horse stood in the sunlight, and for the first time in decades, Storm lifted her head and looked at the sky like she was noticing it, like she was feeling it, like she was remembering what it felt like to be alive. Marcus stood beside the horse and felt tears on his face. "You're going to make it," he whispered. "You're going to be okay." James Wilson came out and stood beside them. "She is a fighter," the old doctor said. "But you already knew that. Love like hers does not die easily. Love like that finds a way to survive, no matter what." Marcus nodded. He thought about Sarah. He thought about how her love had kept Storm alive for all these years. He thought about how Storm's love had kept Sarah coming back, again and again, even when it hurt. That night, Marcus made a new promise to Storm. He promised that he would never leave her. He promised that he would take care of her. He promised that he would help her live, really live, not just survive. Storm stood beside him in the darkness, and for the first time, the horse seemed peaceful. The horse seemed like she was ready for whatever came next. The breaking point had come and gone. Now it was time for healing. Now it was time for redemption. 3 months had passed since Marcus brought Storm to James Wilson's house. 3 months of medicine and care and love. 3 months of slow, patient healing that seemed impossible at first, but became real every single day. On a morning in early spring, Marcus saddled Storm for the first time. The horse had not worn a saddle in more than 30 years. Marcus was nervous. He moved slowly, carefully, talking the whole time. "This is okay," he whispered. "You are strong enough now. I can feel it. You are ready." Storm stood still while Marcus adjusted the saddle. The old horse's breathing was calm. Her eyes were clear. She was not the broken creature from the cabin anymore. She was becoming herself again. James Wilson watched from the porch of his house. "She is beautiful," the old doctor said. "I can see what she must have been. I can see why that girl loved her so much." Marcus nodded. He could see it too now. Under the old age, under the sadness, under all those years of waiting, there was still a beautiful horse. There was still spirit. There was still fire. Marcus climbed into the saddle slowly. Storm did not move. The horse did not panic. She just waited, like she was remembering how this felt, like her body was remembering what her heart had never forgotten. "Are you ready?" Marcus asked. Storm took one step, then another. Then something changed. The old horse's body remembered. The years fell away. Storm began to walk with purpose, with strength, with the kind of grace that comes from knowing exactly who you are. Marcus squeezed gently with his legs. Storm broke into a trot. Then, without warning, the old horse burst into a gallop. Marcus had never ridden before. He did not know how to ride, but his body understood. His heart understood. He held the reins and felt the wind and felt the desert flying past him. He felt like he was flying. They rode across the desert for hours. Storm's hooves ate up the ground. The horse that everyone thought was dead was running like she had never stopped. Like 30 years of waiting had given her more strength, not less. Like all that love had turned into power. When the sun started to set, Marcus turned Storm toward the cabin, toward home, toward Sarah. The ride back took until dark. When they finally reached the cabin, Storm slowed to a walk. The horse seemed to know exactly where she was. The old horse walked straight to Sarah's grave without Marcus guiding her. The horse stood at the grave for a long time. In the moonlight, Marcus could see tears on Storm's face. Or maybe it was just the light. Maybe it was just his own tears reflecting on the horse's fur. Marcus climbed down from the saddle and stood beside Storm. "We did it," he said softly. "You lived. You fought. You never gave up. And now you are free." Storm lowered her head to the ground above Sarah's grave. Marcus had brought something with him. He had Sarah's journal, the whole journal, All her love, all her words, all her heart written on those pages. He had also brought an old photograph that he had found in the cabin. The photograph of Sarah and Storm from 1987, when they were both young and the world was full of possibility. Marcus dug a small hole near Sarah's grave. He placed a journal in the hole. He placed a photograph in the hole. He covered it carefully with earth. "I'm putting these here," he said to Sarah, even though he knew she could not hear him. "I'm putting these here so you and Storm will always be together. So everyone who comes here will know about your love. So nobody will ever forget." When Marcus was done, Storm stood very still. The old horse seemed to be saying goodbye, seemed to be saying thank you, seemed to be saying that she understood that Sarah was gone, understood that she had to let go, understood that it was time to live instead of just wait. The next morning, Marcus made a decision. He would not stay at the cabin. He would not live in the past anymore. He would take Storm and ride forward. He would find a new place, a place where both of them could start again. But before he left, he carved something into the wooden post of the fence where Storm had been tied for so many years. He carved it carefully, making each letter perfect. Storm and Sarah, a 1987 to 2018 love that never dies, a horse that waited, a girl who never forgot loyalty changes destiny. Marcus packed what little he had. He took Sarah's money. There was still some left. He took a blanket. He took water. He took the memory of a love story that had changed him forever. Then he climbed into the saddle, and he and Storm rode away from the cabin, away from the grave, away from the past, but not away from the memory. Memory rode with them. Memory would always ride with them. 1 year later, the ranch was small, but it was theirs. Marcus had bought land about 50 miles from the cabin, good land with water and grass and room to run. He had built a new barn. He had fenced fields. He had made a place where a horse could be happy. Storm lived there now. She was old, very old, but she was healthy. She was strong. She ran every day in the fields, and sometimes Marcus rode her, and sometimes he just watched her run, grateful to be alive, grateful to see her alive. Marcus had become a horse doctor's assistant. He helped James Wilson treat sick and injured horses. He helped other broken creatures find their way back to life. Because he knew now that healing was possible. He knew that love could save you. He knew that loyalty could change destiny. One evening, Marcus sat under the stars with Storm standing beside him. The old horse rested her head on his shoulder. "Do you think she would be proud?" Marcus asked the horse. "Do you think Sarah would be happy seeing you like this? Seeing you run again? Seeing you alive?" Storm nickered softly. It was a sound like yes. A sound like forgiveness. A sound like peace. Marcus thought about the cabin. He thought about the grave. He thought about a woman who had loved so deeply that her love had kept a horse alive for decades. He thought about a horse who had waited so faithfully that she had refused to die. He thought about how two broken things, a broken man and a broken horse, had found each other and become whole. "Thank you," he whispered to Storm. "Thank you for teaching me about love. Thank you for showing me that waiting for something true is never wasted. Thank you for saving me." Storm closed her eyes and rested her head on Marcus's shoulder. The desert wind blew softly. The stars shone brightly. And in that moment, everything was perfect. Everything was healed. Sometimes the weakest moment becomes legendary. Sometimes a horse and a human find each other at exactly the right moment. Sometimes love writes a story that never ends. Storm and Marcus had found their redemption. They had found their home, and they would ride together forever in the heart of the Wild West. The end.